So, welcome back to the Killer Storyteller podcast with me, Rachel Lynch, coming to you from the UK in London. Thanks so much for joining us today for our next episode here on the podcast. And as always, I'm joined by my Aussie mate, Kristy Horn. Hi, Kristy.
G'day, Rach. How are you? It's so lovely to see you. And a big hello to everyone from Melbourne, Australia. How's sunny UK going, Rach? Looks like you've had some beautiful weather.
Yeah, it is sunny at the moment, actually. Last year we had such a terrible summer. It got to about August and I was like, oh, we've missed summer. Seriously, it was so horrible. But this year we've had a couple of weeks that have been absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, really nice. So long may it last. How about you?
Yeah, it's a total opposite here in Melbourne. And you can see I've just put my jacket on because I was starting to get a little bit chilly. And what time is it? It's 6:30 p.m. in the evening. So it's getting a little bit chilly here now. And yeah, I think this weekend we're heading into some wet weather. It's been in drought for such a long time here in Melbourne. So we need the rain. So, but yeah, it's all good. And it's really lovely to see you, Rach. How have you been?
Yeah, really good. Thanks, Kristy. And I've actually just booked tickets to go to Harrogate this year, the Theakston's Old Peculiar Crime Writing Festival. Which, if you haven't heard of it, it is. It's been going since 1966.
Oh,
So
right.
it's the longest running crime festival in the world, I think. And it's in a little town called Harrogate in Yorkshire, which is absolutely stunning. A lot of the buildings are like Yorkshire stone. It's very, very pretty. Yeah, and it's actually held in the Swan Hotel every year, same place every year. Because Agatha Christie stayed there.
Oh,
So that's
okay.
yeah. So that's the link. But yeah, it's a brilliant festival. I've only been once before, a couple of years ago, because it was absolutely exhausting. Literally 4 days of just talking. I needed a long lie down afterwards. Um,
So your new book won't be out by July, or?
No, it won't. I'm not celebrating a launch at this festival, but the last one I went to, I was celebrating my 1,000,000 copy sales. So that was really, really special. This time, I'll just be able to sort of slink into the background a bit more and just really sort of enjoy catching up with other writers, which is lovely. Crime writers, despite what we write about, are actually a really friendly bunch. I think over the 4 days they get about 70,000 visitors. It's really, really popular.
Wow. Have you booked your accommodation yet?
Yes, I'm treating myself. I'm staying in the Hilton, because
Oh,
the
great.
breakfast is amazing. They have a waffle maker.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
I love a breakfast. I can just totally put my nose into every bucket along the buffet. That's the best. And then you don't need lunch. You can have an early dinner.
Yeah, yeah. So that is the only reason I go to the Hilton. So it costs me an absolute fortune, but the breakfast's lovely, and it's 4 nights, so it's like a little holiday.
Yeah,
And yeah, it's great. It's great fun. So that's my news.
fantastic.
I've just booked that. What about you? What have you been up to?
I've just signed up to do a bike race that's coming up later in the year. So I've joined a women's cycling club as well. So I love my cycling. But this is called Round the Bay in a Day. And it's Port Phillip Bay in Melbourne is really large, and it's around 200 kilometres around the bay. And so the cyclists go all the way around the bay in a day. So I'm choosing to do a shorter portion of it, but the shorter portion rides over one of the biggest bridges in Melbourne. So that's the reason why I wanted to do this ride with the team that I'm cycling with, and the team's called Ladies Back on Your Bike. So it's all
Oh,
about women getting back on their bike after cycling, or as maybe young kids or whatever.
oh, amazing.
Yeah, so I love road cycling, so I do a lot of road cycling with my partner. But I get the free jersey and get to ride over the Westgate Bridge.
Oh, that sounds awesome. You take loads of pictures, obviously. When is it?
It's not till a little bit later in the year, so it'll be
Yeah.
in the springtime for us.
Okay.
We're heading into winter very, very soon, so we need to get through the next couple of months, but need to do some training for it, which I will.
Oh,
So yeah, that's what I've been up to. Alrighty, Rach, let's crack open this next episode. And today we're not exploring one of your amazing books, but today we're actually picking the brain of Rachel Lynch, everybody, and exploring how you write a crime fiction book. So I'm really keen to crack this one open. Let's go. Okay, Rach, I can't even imagine where to start with writing a crime novel or indeed a series of 13 like you have. You know what? I'd need so much butcher's papers and multiple whiteboards. Think A Beautiful Mind with Russell Crowe. Lots of writing, excuse me, in words and plots and stuff everywhere. So, how about we just unpack a few questions and see where we go? Okay, Rach, the big question to kick us off, where do you even start when writing a full-length crime novel? Like, what's the first thing that gets you going?
Well, what you said there, Kristy, about clutter is bang on. I mean, I'm sure that all writers are just surrounded by this chaos of post-it notes, scrapbooks, maps, books, visuals everywhere. I think that's probably true for all of us. How well organized it all is, that's a different story. I could probably tell you where everything is on my desk, but it wouldn't look that ordered at all. But about actually starting, definitely, and I know I say this a lot, but every writer is different. Every writer has a different process, and some people start at the end, some people start in the middle, some people start at the beginning, literally, and that's what makes writing so interesting, isn't it? That we're all so different. But for me, it starts with just one little spark. It could be a plot idea or a single scene or even a character flaw. And then I start to think about that tiny little seed. So, if it's a person or a scene, and then it just builds and builds. And I go for my, plot walks, which we talked about in the last episode, didn't we? I love that. And I just take the dog out and I have a little think and I think, well, what would they say to each other? What would they do to each other? Sometimes I start with the crime. I think of all of the different crimes that I've done. So when you're on number 14, obviously it gets harder to be original. And so I might start with, oh, well, I haven't done that one before. I haven't done that idea before. So then I start then to build characters around it. The setting is already there for me because obviously my books are all set in the Lake District, and then I could think, well, where haven't I sort of concentrated on before? So number 13, for example, is set around this tiny little lake called Rydal Water, and it's absolutely stunning. I'll put some pictures on our social media because it's about, I think it's about 3 miles long and about 2 miles long and about 300 meters across. So it's tiny, and it's so pretty. Lots of beautiful walks around there, and so I just started with that this time. And so I love I love that the first page isn't always the beginning, and actually, the energy for a story can start in so many different places, and I try not to think of me sat there facing a blank page and thinking I need to write 100,000 words.
Yeah.
I think that's the worst thing that I could possibly do, that anybody could do. So my daughter is in her second year at university at the moment, and she is writing a thesis which is 4,000 words, and I write that in a couple of hours. So you can't think of it as a right, I'm going to sit down and write a book. And I think when you're starting out in this industry, I think that's what puts a lot of people off is, well, I can't write a full length book. It's just too much. It's too long. I can't see it all. There isn't a vision. But if you start with just one little idea and then build on it, and then the words just build up one page at a time. I can't remember who said it, but there's a quote which says, you can't edit a blank page. And so you've just, got to just get cracking. And then you can always edit later. But the words build up. So if I write, 2 to 4,000 words a day, it builds up and it builds up. You look at your little word count every time you finish for the day. Then you feel a bit more confident. Then you get, there are milestones. There are like chunks. So, 2 chapters, 10 chapters, halfway, 3/4, I'm nearly there.
Yeah.
And so that's the way that I sort of break it down. And I just want to share this quote with you about getting started and just taking it one page at a time, from Joe Girard, who was a salesman and motivational speaker from the US,
Yep.
who actually only died recently. He was born in 1928, but he died in 2019. I love this.
Okay.
And he
Yeah.
said, the elevator to success is out of order. You'll have to use the stairs one step at a time.
Oh, I love that. That's perfect, isn't it? Because it is just one step at a time, one foot in front of the other. Yeah, there's no way around that. So I guess once your words are starting to form, does it just like spew out, and you're just like this on the computer, right, typing really fast? Sorry, that's a question without notice.
Some days it does and some days it doesn't. And my husband knows what stage I'm at, because by the loudness of my size and how fast I'm typing. So we share an office. It was supposed to be my office, and then COVID hit. And so, he's in here a lot now, which is quite irritating. He's very loud on meetings, but so he has
So
people.
typical.
He has people say to him on meetings, and he's got proper like sound cancelling headphones on. What's that noise? It sounds like a machine gun, and it's me typing. It's like brrr. So
Smoke coming off the keyboard.
So that's on a good day. But then it goes all quiet, and he pokes his head up above the computer. He said, "Are you all right?" I'm like, "Yeah, we need to go for a plot walk."
Yeah.
So it comes and goes, and when you're in the zone, and my fingers are like a machine gun, obviously very loud, that's great and it feels brilliant. But then you get a dip, and I think that's what writer's block is. Writer's block is you just sort of dry up, and you start to doubt yourself. Oh my god, and so if I'm having a dip, Mike will say, "Are you on chapter 15?" I'm so used to it.
Yeah.
So obviously about chapter 15, I'm having a bit of a dip. I'm starting to question the whole premise.
Okay.
And so, yeah, it's definitely, it definitely goes in stages.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. I'm absolutely loving this discussion. But I have to ask, how on earth do you plan out something as big as 100,000 words over 60 chapters? Like, I know Deep Fear that we talked about in last episode is 66 chapters plus an epilogue. That's a lot of story. Is it all structured, or do you go more on gut instinct? Tell us how that works.
So my agent's favourite phrase is, and it's actually on his website for his agency. I love the name of his agency. It's called the Ampersand Agency, which is just so cute. That symbol
Yeah.
is just so lovely, isn't it? And I actually
Yeah.
found a Christmas decoration, sparkly silver Christmas decoration in the shape of an ampersand. So that goes on my tree. But so on his website, he's got his favourite phrase, which is instinct over intellect. And when we first met, he took me to lunch at the BAFTA in London, and we got chatting about what I was doing at the moment, because he loved my first book. And so, we met to talk about him becoming my agent, and I told him about all my notes that I was making and things like that. And he said, "Can you do me a favour?" And I said, "Well, you know what? Yes, I'll do anything."
Perhaps.
He said, "Can you just put your notes away and just see what happens for this next one?" And I was like, "Oh, okay." And so that book where he said, "Put your notes away, see what happens," that was Dark Game. And we ended up abandoning the one that I'd already written that caught his attention. And Dark Game was that one that I went home from the lunch at the BAFTA and sat down, and I just didn't use notes, and I just had it in my head, and I just went with instinct. And actually that's what I've done since. Now, I'm not saying I don't use notes because,
Yeah.
I need, you can't write 100,000 words and make them make sense over 66 chapters with an epilogue without notes, of course. But I don't have massive, planned out charts or, PowerPoint presentations or anything like that. I honestly don't know where
Yeah.
I'm going when I start. So when I started Deep Fear, for example, which was our last episode, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I kind of started with the vigilante serial killer premise, but I definitely did not know how it was going to weave in and out and all the plot twists and everything. So that is, yeah. In the business, we say you're either a planner or a pantser. So so planners plan everything out meticulously, then they start writing. Pantsers, we start by the seat of our pants, we fly by the seats of our pants, and we just go with instinct and we just start writing and see where it goes. And there are drawbacks and benefits for each, because
Yeah,
if you're a
right. I can.
planner, you probably come out with a much tighter first manuscript, first draft,
Yep.
and probably need to do less work in editorial. If you're a pantser, you probably come out with a messier first draft and then need to do a little bit more editing. But I prefer it that way because I love editing.
Okay, so you'll write it, then edit it, and then it will be submitted to your publisher.
Yeah. So as I've got further into the Kelly series, I've become a better editor, and it really sort of switches on my teacher brain.
Yep.
Um, so it's like marking your own work.
Yep.
So I will do the first draft by instinct, and I call that just my blur. I just, it's literally just vomiting it onto the page. Right, I've got to get this done. So opening my computer, it's like when they say the heaviest weight in the gym is the front door, or the heaviest weight for a writer is actually the lid of your laptop.
Opening it.
If you can get that open and get your fingers working, then something will always come. And personally, I believe that writer's block is the inability to open that laptop and actually sit down. It's to do with fear and um, imposter syndrome and stuff that we're going to talk about in this podcast.
Yeah.
So, once you get cracking, then okay. So in the back of my mind now, I'm a lot more confident than I used to be as a writer. I'm thinking,
Yeah.
well, okay, that might sound pretty shit actually, but do you know what? I'm getting my point across, and then when I finish my manuscript, I can go back and finish it.
Yeah. And I think in one of our very first episodes, you said you put it into your Kindle and then you listen back to it, and just from a reader's point of view, not from your.
Yeah,
It's so fascinating, Rach. This is really interesting, just sort of finding out what the process is and how you go about it. From a fan that's been reading your books for ages now, it's really, really interesting. Thanks so much for sharing this with us, because it's so personal as well.
it's something that you don't really get to talk about very often, because
Yeah, I find it really fascinating.
it's a very isolated profession, and actually it's lovely to talk about it because people just see the finished product on a shelf or
Mm,
on Amazon, Audible, or wherever it may be, and actually there's probably 2 or 3 years work
yeah.
behind the scenes for that gorgeous cover, and so to talk about it is actually a real pleasure for me.
No, that's so good. Let's talk about your writing process and what's that like. Where do you write and what tools do you use? Like, you must have lots of resources.
Yeah, and like that organized chaos as well. It's so
Uh,
nice to have an office. So just before COVID, I was lucky enough to so the Kelly novels were doing really well, and I made the decision to treat myself as a pat on the back for me, to an office in the garden, and we used a company here in the UK, that was, did these things, their bread and butter, and I love it. I mean, it's just that space for me to leave the house and have all of my professional stuff in a
yeah,
different space. I absolutely love
yeah,
it. And ironically, then COVID hit and everybody wanted one, and we'd got our order in first. So
great.
ours was built in, I think it was the October of 20. So COVID, was really at its height, and but they were allowed to come and do this in the garden because we got our order in, and then their wait time was a year.
Wow,
After
you're a
that, yeah. So that's my environment out in my office, which faces the garden. So it's so peaceful out here, um, and I've got a huge desk, and I've just got all of my favorite things. So I've got a massive thesaurus here, which actually the front cover came off a couple of weeks ago. That's how how much
yeah,
I use it. I love my thesaurus.
yeah.
I've actually just bought myself a brand new keyboard because
Amazing.
I wore the tops off some keys of my last one. It lasted about 7 months.
From all that machine gun typing.
The machine gun typing, machine gun Rach, not machine gun Kelly. Oh, machine gun Kelly! Oh no! Oh my god,
Oh, that reminds me, that's something we haven't talked about on the podcast. We've got to get our Spotify playlist happening.
oh
So,
yes,
yeah, we absolutely have to do that.
I'm
Like,
gonna do
that's to
that.
come, listeners. And we want input from our fans too to, give us song suggestions that we
Yes.
can, because we've got that capacity with the Spotify. So,
Oh no, that's epic. But on that though, that is another post-it note that will now go up on my notice board,
Machine
Spotify
Gun Kelly.
playlist, Machine Gun Kelly, and Spotify playlist. So I've got a notice board here, and I've got I always have handy my working document, which is all of the books. So we've started a character list, haven't we?
Yes.
And I've
Yep.
started a location list as well, because
Yeah.
what I really want to do is a map of the Lake District with all of the
Yep.
the locations on. So I've got that next to me as well. I've got loads of notebooks, and I just it's my happy place. I just feel comfortable here, and I've got everything to hand. I've got my map behind me on my wall of the Lake District, so I can just scoot over in my chair and have a look at what's around Rydal Water, for example, and build that in. And so yeah, and again, I emphasize that everybody's different, everyone has a different order, but I just feel as though that helps me get into the zone. I'm in my favorite place. I'm surrounded by all of my familiar things, and I might have a few copies of my books around because I might need to
Okay.
dip into them just to check something. I've got a speaker as well because I love putting on some chill music. We'll talk about
Okay.
that
Yeah.
when we talk about the playlist as well, because that is so important to me. So yeah, coming out here, getting in the zone, and then the most important thing I think is believing that you can get to the end of those 100,000 words because
Yeah.
you've done it before. The first one obviously is terrifying because you've never done it before. How do you even think about that many words and making them make sense? Because I always say that the editorial process is like taking 100,000 jigsaw pieces and throwing them up in the air and then watching them land. I know what every single piece says. That's how I see the editorial process. It's bonkers.
Yeah, and it'd be hard not to. It's so personal too. Like if somebody's going through your work with a big fat red pen.
Yeah, that hurts. You get used to that as you go along, and now I'm not precious about what editors do. And at the end of the day, it's my copyright. So even if somebody takes a big red pen to my work, I don't have to accept it. And I'm very lucky to have a fantastic editor in Louise Cullen. She's just incredible. And actually, the other unique thing about my relationship with Canelo and its place in the industry is that I've actually had Louise as my editor for my whole career, which is so rare, so rare. Yeah. So me and Louise have worked on the Kelly books for 8 years now, and that is such a privilege. And so she's had a few breaks to have two babies.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she's been on mat leave for a few of them. So yeah, she's been a real constant, which is brilliant. So, and the thing is about Louise is that we know each other really well now, and actually, if she says something, something needs cutting, or this character needs bringing forward, or whatever,
Okay.
then I really trust her.
Yeah.
And I think publishing is about relationships. Your relationship with your agent, your relationship with your publishing editor, they are hugely significant relationships.
That is so fascinating. I love this background. Rach, you've mentioned the ABC method before. Can you break that down for us? Like, how does it keep a big novel on track?
So I learned this when I was a teacher. I was on a teacher training course, which are great fun, and obviously, for professional development, it's really important. And this changed my life, that learning about this, and I use it for everything. And you can apply it to absolutely anything. So the A is basically what you have to do right now. The
Mhm.
B is what you need to do maybe in the next couple of days. And then the C is what you need to do over maybe the next month. You can kick it down the road. And applied to a book, it could be a piece of research, for example. Or I can't actually write this chapter until I do this research. So that plans your day for you, because
Okay.
that becomes an A, on your
Right.
list of things to do, that particular research. So I'm writing a novel at the moment set in a Scottish castle, and I've just actually learned about this thing called a ski and poob, which is it's the place in the sock on a traditional Scottish dress where the gilly, which is the hunting and fishing expert, keeps his dagger. So things like that. And so
Oh,
so so an A on my A's on my list of things to do, because obviously I've got 1,000 things running through my head. I've got to write this novel. Where do you start? What chapter am I on? So I think about what I've got to do today, what's in my head today, and then I mark them A's, B's, and C's. So that piece of research will be an A. And
yep.
then the B's would be, oh, well, actually, I don't need to interview them until Tuesday. Or I don't need to do like a character or a chapter review until tomorrow. So they'll be my B's. And then my C's are, the bigger things, like maybe having a meeting with an editor or talking to that bookshop about going and doing an event, that sort of thing. So really, it's a tool to organize your time. That's all it is.
Right. Yeah. And prioritizing. What's important? What do you need to get done right now?
Yeah, exactly. That's all it is.
It's so simple but effective. The ABCs makes
Yeah.
sense, doesn't it?
But you have your own version of this, don't you, Kristy? Because you were saying that A is the big picture, B is the internal structure, and C is the character journey. Where did you get that from?
I got it just off the internet.
Oh,
'Cause I
wow.
yeah,
Okay.
I read that. I read the ABC method, I don't know, when I was doing some research or something. I thought, "What is that?"
Ah,
So, anyway, that's what that popped up. So, that's why I was interested to figure out your spin on it. What it mean to you, H?
that's really interesting, because I think people have taken the ABC, obviously, and they've applied it to different jobs, and applied to a particular book. That makes sense. That's nice. But for me, it's more about organization, prioritizing jobs, which I find really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a big list writer. I've got notes everywhere, lists everywhere, books everywhere with notes in them and stuff. So,
Yeah, me too.
it's a full-time job.
It so is, yeah.
Uh, your books can get really pretty dark and gritty and super intense. How do you switch off from when you close the laptop? So, what do you do to get to decompress? Are you an alcoholic? Do you drink a lot, or do you do lots of yoga and drink peppermint tea like me? So, what do you do to decompress?
Yeah, it's a really good question, because I think it's so important, and I think that we can all forget to do that, can't we?
Yeah.
I was talking to my daughter only yesterday. She was feeling really overwhelmed with
Mm.
yeah, with some work that she had to do, and she felt really, really tired. She'd been at the library, she started yawning, and I was like, listen to your body, go for a nap. So I think my answer to that is whatever makes you feel nice. And I have this thing which they're called glimmers. And
Okay.
you can look this up, you can Google it, and a glimmer is so you have this feeling of joy and so it could be walking in the country and you see a bird or whatever, and it just gives you this real sort of hug of joy. And I think that looking for the glimmers is what I do to relax. So I think about what, you know, gives me pleasure. And actually I find yoga really quite boring. It's not yoga. I don't. Oh, do you know what? I actually, yoga for me is counterproductive because there's not a lot going on. So I
Yeah.
start thinking,
Yeah, your mind
and that's
starts
not good.
racing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, you know, I'm doing downward dog, and I'm thinking about, you know, defrosting a body to autopsy it. It's not good. It's not. That's not good for me.
What was that thing we had in the last podcast with the eggs are gone dormant?
Horrific. Yeah. Yoga is too soporific for me. It's yeah. I need some. So not to criticize all the yoga Zen masters out there. Obviously, it's a beautiful thing. But personally, I need something a bit more sort of full on. So I go to the gym. I actually don't drink alcohol.
Mhm.
I used to drink. I gave up drinking booze about 5 years ago, and
That's the same as us.
interesting.
But yeah, I do love a good mocktail.
Oh, yum.
Let's talk about some music. My mood always dictates what I listen to. For example, if it's Belinda Carlisle, 1980s, something to bop around, Kylie Minogue, or if I'm feeling like I just need to calm down a little bit, I'll chuck on some classical, which I love, classical music. What do you work to, Rach?
Yeah, I'm the same as you. It's definitely mood dependent. So I've been working out to 80s music recently, which is just hilarious. Like Voyage, Voyage. Can you remember that? Voyage, Voyage. And, you know, Starship. We built the city, and sisters are doing it for themselves. You know, the Eurythmics
Yeah.
with Aretha Franklin and all of that. Oh my God, I've been loving it. So it
Yeah.
all depends on my mood. And when I work, I've got this you know, big speaker by my desk, which I turn down low, so I can't have it, you know, blasting out, but just like
Yep.
gentle in the background. And so I listen to a lot of classical piano,
Yeah.
chill out compilations, and just recently I've been starting to listen to country.
Okay.
Yeah, in the background, which is lovely. It's just really gentle, and I think it makes me a bit soporific. And how many times can we get it in with Machine Gun Kelly? Yeah, so it just sort of calms my nervous system down and gets me in the zone, and off I go with the machine gun.
We're going to talk a little bit more about the Lake District. It's such a big part of the Kelly Porter series. And how often do you go there? I know we talked about this before, but do you go there to gather inspiration, or is it for location scouting? What's the deal with that?
Yeah, but it's a bit of both.
Yeah.
And I try. Yeah, I mean, I try to go as much as I can because we live in Hertfordshire now, which is near Cambridge, kind of in between London and Cambridge. So it's about 4.5 hours drive to get up to the Lake District from where I am now. So it's a bit of
Oh, so it's not far at
trek.
all.
It's not far. It needs planning. Yeah, sorry, I'm talking to an Australian, aren't I? Yeah, it's just next door. In fact, I'm just going to nip there now. Yeah, you're talking to a British person, Kristy. That is like hours. But yeah, so I try and get back there at least once or twice a year, and we are going in a week's time. Actually, it's bank holiday weekend here in the UK next week.
All right. So by the time this episode comes out, you would have already been.
But yeah, I will take loads of you know, pictures, and 'cause every time I go and I try and take loads of, you know, really interesting pictures, like pathways and lakes and dark places and interesting places that inspire stories. So yeah, absolutely every time I go, I get new inspiration. It could be an abandoned stone shepherd's hut, you know,
Yep.
along a walk, or it could be the side of a lake, it could be under a tree, just one view, and that could inspire a character, or could actually be on top of Scarfell Pike and be over eavesdropping on somebody's conversation. I'm thinking,
Yeah.
that's an interesting character. So absolutely.
Will there be snow?
No, they're not that high. So interestingly, we went to the French Alps a couple of years ago in summer, and there was still snow on Mont Blanc. And so Mont Blanc is about about 4,000 meters? So Mont Blanc is about, that's about 12,000 feet, isn't it? So in the Lake District, we're on 3,000 feet. So we're dinky. Yeah, I think most mountaineers would call them little hillocks. However, some very famous mountaineers do love the Lake District because technically they're really interesting walks. So we're very proud. We're very proud of them. We call them mountains.
Oh, beautiful. And because it's coming into such a beautiful part of the season, and we follow lots of people on Instagram on the Killer Storyteller podcast Instagram page, there's been all of these wonderful, people saying, "Oh, I'm going to do this walk today," and it's only a 6K walk, and it's all flat, and let me take you along. So I feel like I'm going along for the journey at the moment. It looks so beautiful, and all the bluebells are out.
Yes. Yeah. And with that, when you get a good day in the Lake District with that blue sky, it just frames everything. It's stunning. Yeah. So I'll get loads of pictures next week.
Hey, Rach, can we talk about your agent for a sec? So I'm really keen to understand what does your agent do, because I have absolutely no clue. And how did you connect with them? Because in my mind, they're sort of sitting in a big office, downtown with smoking a big fat cigar behind a big desk. Is that how it really is in real life?
I'm sure. I'm sure that's what it used to be. No, without a shadow of a doubt. I'm thinking like, some of the scenes in Harry
Admin.
Potter. Yeah. Absolutely, and but nowadays, like all industries, it's a lot of it's gone online, and yeah. So, and there's a lot more women, a lot more female agents out there. Publishing used to be quite a male orientated space. That's changing now, but yeah, there's lots of information out there on what a good agent is, because it's obviously important, isn't it? I mean, it's like, they are the gatekeepers of the publishing world. Finding one that you click with is really, really important, but there's more to it than that. And I mean, I feel very lucky that I found my agent. Peter Bookman has been working in the industry since he was in his 20s, and he's now in his 80s. So he's got, bags of experience. And if I just sort of go into a few things about what a good agent looks like, one of them is experience, and Peter's got, bags of it. So I trust him in that
Yeah.
sense, to have my back. And really, an agent is like a talent scout. They're the ones who spot the talent and then sell the talent to the publishers. So you probably hear a lot at the moment about self-publishing, about indie publishing, that sort of thing. And I have massive respect for those authors, and it's, there's lots of ways you can do that now. But my personal preference, I said to myself about 10 years ago now, about 2015, that I was going to write, and then I was going to just keep on writing and wait until I was agented, because I just wanted that level of protection. And that was just my personal choice. So what makes a good agent? Well, they take 15% of your earnings. So, they need to earn that.
Yep.
And a good agent negotiates the deal, and protects you from the publishing world, which can be quite a brutal place to be in. All that technical language that's in the contracts and all of that. You might miss something. People have missed TV rights and film rights being signed away, that sort of thing. I'm not a contract maker. I'm a writer. So, that's his job. They fight your corner. A good agent should be accessible. They answer your emails. They don't leave you, hanging. I mean, Peter, unless he's at a London Book Week or, he's away with his family, he'll answer me within hours.
Yep.
He's always been like that, so he's accessible. He's honest. He doesn't promise me the world. If an agent says to you, "Oh, I can make you famous," or "I can sell 100,000 books," you need to run, because nobody can promise that. Peter's honest. He's like, "Well, we'll see what happens. What do you want to do? What do you want to do next?" And I'll say, "Well, I'm thinking about maybe doing another Helen, or maybe another Kelly, or I've got this idea for a standalone." And he's like, well, what makes you most excited? And I'm saying, well, maybe the next Kelly. And he'll say, well, then that's what you should write then, and send it to me when you're ready, and I'll tell you what I think. He's completely open and honest with me.
Yep.
And he's also my biggest advocate. He's utterly passionate about my work. Ironically, he's not a huge crime fan, and I make him cringe sometimes.
Really, I bet. Yeah, it can be pretty
I mean,
gruesome, some of the scenes.
yeah, absolutely. And so he's it's all about the writing. It's all about how the book flows, how it reads, how it connects, how it makes you feel. Because over the years, I've learned that writing is not just about telling the story. It's not just about being clever with the plot. You've got to have an emotional response in the reader, because they've got to want to come back for more. And he's got to have those business skills, which I'm absolutely useless at. The biggest thing is that you've got to click. So when he invited me, the process is that you send your first 3 chapters off to agents to get their attention. The vast majority say no, because they're so busy. They get thousands and thousands a week to go through. So, that process is notoriously depressing. But what you do want is an email to pop into your box saying, oh, I loved your first 3 chapters. I'd like to read the whole manuscript. And when that happens, it's like, oh my God. So he did that. And then he invited me for lunch in London. So I went along to the BAFTA, which was pretty cool, because I've never been there before. And we chatted, and we just clicked instantly.
Yeah.
And that is so important, because I hear horror stories all the time about all sorts of things to do with the publishing world, about people not getting on, about people being ignored, about editors leaving, and then the next editor who replaces them doesn't like the books. They have to write a new one. And honestly, the stories are terrifying. And so that human relationship, like my relationship with Louise, my editor, they are the kingpins of your career.
Yeah, you've been so lucky, and it's really wonderful to hear. You're still continuing to work with some of the same people you started off with 10 years ago. What about the publishing side of things? What's your publisher's input like, and how does that work? And how did you land your first deal?
So that was Peter's job, and so once you get an agent, they then find you the deal. That's how they earn their money. And so when Peter came to me and said, I've got this editor. She's really enthusiastic about your work. She wants to have a chat with you. So I organised a chat with her, and again we clicked, and we were, we couldn't shut up about Dark Game. She was so enthusiastic about it, and so I signed with them. And she said, have you got any more? And I said, well, actually, we've got 3 ready. And she said, okay. So my first contract was for 3. And then they've rolled in 3s from then. And so that was back in 2017. And again, Louise is a huge champion of Kelly and my work, and she's seen her grow. So that's another lovely thing about staying with the same editor. And so basically, I will write my first manuscript, my first draft. Then I'll send that to Peter first of all, and he'll tell me yay or nay. He'll say, I like this, I don't like that. Then I'll play around with it for a bit. Then I'll send it to Louise, and then she'll say yay or nay. And she'll say, actually, this is really tight already. We'll send it straight to copy edit.
Wow.
And so that is like an external editor who may or may not know me and my work. A lot of them do, some of them don't. And so that will be like plot holes, grammar, things that maybe don't quite work, things that you've missed, sentences that don't really make sense. So it's really a very technical part of the process. And then
Really interesting. Yeah.
And it goes through several of those hoops until finally a professional proofreader will just, check the final manuscript. And so it really is a journey, and it's a whole team, behind it, because everybody sees different things. And you just mentioned there that, I put one of my final drafts through my Kindle. So that draft that I put through my Kindle is actually one of the later ones, when it's been finessed already by editors and
Right.
myself. And so what I do is I put it into my Kindle, and then I sit and I read it with a reader's head on.
Yes.
And the difference it makes, because I'm not I'm in a professional space. I'm not in my editing space. I'm not in my teacher space. I'm not in my business space. I'm just
Yep.
a reader. And so I pick up different things. And so I then go back before the proofread and just, make tiny little changes then that I've picked up. And I find it a really helpful tool. And then, then it goes to artwork. It'll have been to artwork a lot earlier than that, because
Yeah.
as soon as you've got your story, the flavor, then it goes to artwork. And then the publicity team, sales and marketing team. And then, you've got publication date. So that whole process probably takes, a year and a half.
Wow, such a long process. That's great. What a fantastic insight we're getting from you, Rach. This is so fantastic. In your opinion, so what are some of the downsides to writing novels, and what is it that most people might not see? What do you find really tough behind the scenes?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because I think you spend a lot of time dreaming about being a published author. The stats are really terrifying. The amount of people who send books in to agents, the amount of rejections you get, the amount of people who actually make a living from it, the amount of people you see on the front shelf of a bookshop or getting a review in a really high profile newspaper like here, that to get a review in the Sun newspaper and the Daily Mail, which I did for the Rich, was, it's huge. And so you sit dreaming for a long time about writing, but then when it happens and you become fortunate enough to do this full time, and then you realize that actually it's an incredibly lonely profession, because I'm sat here in
Mm,
my head all day, which sometimes is not a very healthy thing to do for any of us, right? Is it?
yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah. So I have to make sure that I stop that isolation and I break that isolation. So I go for a lot of coffees with friends. I go for lots of dog walks. I try and look for those glimmers, those
Yeah.
those deep joy moments to make me happy, because I'm a crime writer. So I not only spend my time on my own in my head, but I spend my time on my own in my head killing people. So
Yeah.
so it can be quite dark. So other things that I never expected to, which surprised me, was the worry, the anxiety that comes with writing, because
Yeah.
the, you have this incredible moment where everybody's interested in you and everybody celebrates you on publication day, and you get invited to places, interesting places, you get invited to speak about your books, but then you start to worry about, well, can I write another one? Can I keep this
Mm.
going? So there's this constant anxiety that follows you about, your ideas. Are the ideas going to dry up? Is the fashion going to change? Am I going to become irrelevant? Am I going to become dated? So there's that as well. There's also, the little sort of devil on your shoulder
Yeah.
asking, if you're legitimate, are you good enough? Because it's an art, isn't it? So, like any art, like any creative thing, it's very, very personal and very, very subjective. So, and we might go to the National Portrait together. You'd love one portrait and I'd hate it. And I'd love the other one and you'd hate it. So that's what you're up against. And some people can be quite cruel. I don't actually read reviews anymore, because it doesn't really make any difference. I love it that I've got almost 13,000 reviews for Dark Game, but I don't read many of them, because it can be quite upsetting if somebody's criticised you personally for something that you've written, and actually Dark Game's got nothing to do with me, or very little to do with me. You've created this thing. Yeah, it's like a pop star being criticised for a lyric, but personally attacked. It's this personal attack, which is difficult to deal with. So that's hard. And then another thing which is hard is, am I successful? What is success? Is
Yep.
success money? Is success how many times I get invited to speak? Is success how many friends I have on Twitter? Is success the reviews I get? Is success whether a huge name like Lee Child has actually given me an endorsement? Is success consistent royalties? Is success walking into a big bookshop in Piccadilly in the centre of London, and it being on the front table, which actually I will add that publishers pay for. So, it's a really interesting world, and I think you've just got to do you. You've just got to have that. You never give up. That self belief that actually success is, to me, is the fact that I'm still enjoying it.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
if I sell books and I get fans and they want me to engage with them on social media, then that is just the icing on the cake. That is incredible. I mean, I got a message recently from somebody, a woman in the UK, who said that she'd been diagnosed with cancer, and she was going into hospital to have her treatment, and she'd taken the first of my 5 books, and it was getting her through her cancer treatment. There is no better endorsement than that, is there? You get no money in the world, or being invited onto panels to talk about yourself. None of that compares to that. I mean, that is just the best thing. That
yeah.
it was so humbling, the thought that she was going through this thing, and I provided her with some light relief.
Really lovely. I have to say, working with you on the podcast and starting the Instagram page and the Twitter, the X page, you have the loveliest followers. They're so lovely and kind and thoughtful, and send beautiful messages and beautiful photos of them with their books and reading the books and giving reviews. You got a 10 out of 10 review from Molly's books. We're going to use that in one of our
Oh,
social posts, but you have the most loveliest followers, and it's such a delight to be a part of that. That must make your heart feel really full when you read those types of messages.
yeah, and that's a glimmer, that I was talking
Yeah,
about. That
yeah,
just
I love
fills
that.
you with deep joy. You wake up and somebody in, Melbourne, or somebody in Canada, or somebody in Scotland has sent you a message like that. That
Yeah, yeah.
it's incredible. Yeah.
We've talked about you've finished writing Kelly 13. We don't know the title of it yet, which is so exciting. Can't wait to read it. But I want to know what it feels like when you've finally completed that whole entire process that we've talked about. You've submitted it to your agent, the publisher. We've talked about the process just now, but what's that relief feel like? And you've talked about what the timeline is until it goes on the store. Like, oh my God, there's so many questions, Rach. This podcast is going to be another 4 hours long.
We're doing like an episode on each book, but then when we come to the actual nitty-gritty behind the writing, we
There's
sorry.
so much. And I'm
Yeah,
so fascinated by what happens behind the scenes. I love that.
yeah,
But I
yeah.
guess what I'm trying to get to is, what does it feel like when you've passed it all on? Like Kelly 13's gone now.
Yeah, it feels amazing, and it just gets stored away in my nervous system that I can still do it, and that I've just written another 100,000 words, and that
Amazing.
it's okay. Everything's going to be okay. I can still do this. So that's nice. I think that's the instant feeling. And then I have a few days off, and when I finished Kelly 13, which I can tell you is going to be called False Witness.
Oh, wow.
Yes, yeah.
False witness. Oh, you've
False
heard it here
Witness.
first. That's
Yeah.
exciting.
So when I finished that last week, I went to Cambridge with my friend Jackie, and it was a beautiful day. It was gorgeous weather, and we chatted, and we went in and out of shopped. We window shopped, and we had a gorgeous lunch, and it was just so nice. And so that is the sort of thing that I do to celebrate. Yeah, so such a special time. And then it's not too much longer after that I start thinking about the next one.
Yeah, I have to put a request in. You have to write a follow up to The Rich. The Rich is my most favorite book so far. I haven't read all of the books yet.
Oh, brilliant. One of the things that, I get feedback on is that it doesn't take people very long to read them, which is a compliment to me. It's a double-edged sword, because it's a compliment, because um, thrillers need to be thrilling, don't they? You don't want to
Yeah.
put them down. So that's good.
Mm,
Tick. I've done my
mm.
job.
Yeah.
But also, then it's like, oh my Lord, right? Okay, I need to write quicker, because I generally publish about 2 or 3 a year, and that's quite a lot for the publishing industry. So it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm constantly either writing one, thinking about the next one or editing the last one. So
Yeah.
it never, it never ever stops, which is great because everyone wants to be busy.
Yeah, of course. You're super busy. Oh God, I reckon we haven't even scratched the surface on so many topics, Rach. There's so many discussions that we're going to talk about in depth in other episodes, like autopsy, your in-depth research, marketing, promotion, how you get access to speak to specialists and those experts, which I find really fascinating. So many ideas. But I feel like this has been a really good discussion. Such a great chat today.
And also, I think the other thing that's come out of today, in particular for me, is the the difference between the process and then the actual craft, and we're going to do a whole podcast on
Yeah.
that, aren't we?
Yeah.
Like a sort of my take on what makes a killer story.
It could be like a masterclass. We could even,
Yeah.
Oh, that would be so good. I really loved this episode. It's such a great insight into behind the scenes and how you write and how it all kind of comes together. It's really interesting. We hope you find it really interesting too.
So I think that's a wrap for this episode, isn't it, Kristy? And thanks so much for listening. We've loved this episode, and like Kristy said, I mean, that we could just go on about the background, what goes on, what goes into a novel, and how it feels, and what my days are like. We just hope that you've enjoyed it as much as we have, and next time we'll be exploring number 3, Dead End. Can't wait for that. One of my favourites.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. So if you haven't read that yet, that you've got some catching up to do, or if you have read them all and you're going back, then let us know. Let us know any questions you might have that we can discuss on the podcast. We'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely. I'm just about to jump back into Dead End. I have read it, but I need to reread it and make my notes so we can have that for the next podcast. But yeah, if you haven't read it, jump in now. It's perfect time to crack it open. And remember, you can listen to us on Spotify, YouTube. We think this will be up on YouTube so you can watch us as well. I don't think I'm going to edit the YouTube one so people can see it warts and all.
Brilliant.
YouTube music, and be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. How did you feel this episode went?
Oh, I loved it, Kristy. I absolutely love sharing, all the behind the scenes stuff, because it just means that readers get to see what's behind the finished product and all the stuff that so many people and their input that goes into actually that book that you see on the shelves.
All right, until next time, see you later.
Bye.